Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Julie.
We're the hosts of the Hartford Fund's Human Centric Investing Podcast.
Every other week, we're talking with inspiring thought leaders to hear their best ideas for how you can transform your relationships with your clients.
Let's go.
I'm really excited to hear what Coach Wright has to share with us today about teams.
Me too, Julie. And with that, let me introduce Coach Jay Wright. Coach Wright is the William B. Finneran endowed head coach for Villanova men's basketball. In 20 seasons as head coach, Jay has guided the Wildcats to new heights, including NCAA national championships in both 2016 and 2018. He's a two-time winner of the Naismith National Coach of the Year award, and in 2019 became the first men's coach in Big East history to be selected as the league's Coach of the Year 6 times. In 2018, Jay received the John R. Wooden Legends of Coaching Award, and in January 2020 was named the Associated Press Men's College Basketball Coach of the Decade. This past summer, he was part of the coaching staff for Team USA Basketball, who won the gold at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And on September 11th, 2021, Jay was inducted to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Jay's book, Attitude, which was published in 2017, was a New York Times bestseller. With that, I want to welcome Coach Jay Wright to the podcast today.
You know what's pretty cool, John, is that we're doing this podcast and we have such a great relationship with Hartford Funds. Hartford Funds has sponsored our podcast that we do, Talking Villanova Basketball with Jay Wright, and we love this relationship that we've had for over 6 years here between Hartford Funds and Villanova. So it's good to do it back, right? We do your podcast.
Absolutely. And we're delighted to have you here. And I know I personally have been looking forward to this conversation for weeks, and it's so nice to see you here with us today. As you know, Coach Wright, I'm very passionate about teams of different shapes and sizes and styles. And I'm curious today, I'll just dive into the heart of the matter. What, from your perspective, is the biggest challenge when it comes to creating a great high performing team?
Well, I love that, Julie, that there's a position that you have with within an organization that helps team building, that because it's such a unique challenge, I think, in our society now. Um, Maybe me and John, not you, Julie, but in our era, it was kind of easier to build teams. There was a coach, there was a leader, and you did what the coach told you to do, and it was easy to put a team together. It's not so much that way anymore. And in building a team now, one of the things that we do, and maybe differently than the last time I spoke with you guys, we actually explain to our players the value of being a part of a team, explaining to them that you actually can be your best personal self if you give to others and if you are a part of something bigger than yourself. In the past, we used to talk about team, assuming that young people knew what the benefit of a team was. But we find so many of the people that come to us, their whole basketball careers, we get them when they're 18, but their entire basketball careers, they've been told, it's about you. It's about you getting a scholarship. It's about you being the best player on the team. It's about you getting exposure and getting recruited. It's about you getting to the NBA. And it's never been, look, the way you can accomplish that is to be a part of a team and actually think about others and make others around you better. And that can actually be your best path towards accomplishing your personal goals. So explaining the value of team is our new greatest challenge.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I think you're so right that oftentimes the why behind what we're doing is missed, and we all assume that we all have that in our minds and we're all coming from the same place. So I think that's such an incredible improvement to your process. Outside of explaining the why and really defining team and making that truly a part of your culture, what are some other secrets in your mind to creating a great team?
Well, I'm glad you gave me a chance to back up on that because I didn't wanna pass that by because I wouldn't be truthful because I really believe anything that we do after anything we do without explaining that now really doesn't hold any value because, the young people we get are saying, "Well, hey, I'm here for me. You know what? This is about me." So after we explain that, I think the most important and probably the most difficult challenge is building trust between the team members and also and most importantly, trust between the leadership and the team, the players itself. That takes time. And I think the players and the staff evaluate each other based on our actions. We have a saying that your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. And as a leader, I always tell our staff, but I always try to remind myself every decision that you make as a leader and every situation, good or bad, dealing with success or failure, is an opportunity to create trust within your organization. So, we know you can have difficult decisions to make, or you can have difficult challenges to take on as a leader, and you can win that battle short term. But I think you always have to recognize how is this decision going to be perceived by my team and by my staff? And is this decision or this approach to the challenge, is this going to be consistent with the culture we're trying to build, a culture of trust? So sometimes you might have to take a short-term loss on a decision, or taking on a challenge. In our case, sometimes it's a gain, believe it or not. John and I were talking off air about we have these preseason scrimmages where we're allowed to play a team. We're actually not allowed to talk about. We're actually allowed to play a team in a scrimmage situation game where no fans, no one's allowed. But they're great opportunities for us as a coach to uh, pr- put into effect what we demand of our players, the concepts that we want them to adhere to, and maybe lose, but make decisions during the game. If guys aren't doing the things that we know long term are going to help us, or even myself, if I'm not being consistent with what I say that I'm demanding, I've got to be consistent, even if it costs us losing. We scrimmaged Rutgers last weekend, and there were a lot of situations where I thought, you know what, I could let this go. We might win, this part of the scrimmage, but I got to take this guy out and set an example and let him know that this is not how we play that situation. So the building of that trust is monumental.
Given your experience in college athletics all these many years, I imagine that, well, just by the nature of your business, you're dealing with new teams all the time, right? As kids graduate, move on, and your new recruits come in. Is there anything unique about some of those teams? And let me just ask specifically. I mentioned some of those national championships, the 2018 national championship team. When you look back, were there certain things that come into your mind that you think were the secret to their success as a team, or your secret to your successes of that team?
Yeah, definitely. John, we talk about our core values, in our program, and it's what I was referring to when we play scrimmages. Like I have, as a coach, have to be committed to our core values. And to answer your question about those teams, anytime I think any of us have success, we have very talented people around us, right? But and there have been other teams we've had here who are very talented, um, but maybe they didn't completely buy in to our core values as well as those teams did. And those teams, even though they were talented, and sometimes when you're talented individually, it's difficult to buy into the core values of a team. because you recognize, hey, I can there's some things I can do by myself and be really successful, but um, one of our terms here is everyone's role is different, but everyone's value is the same. Um, Everyone gets treated the same. They have the same status no matter what their role is. So in business, you might have high performers, right? And we have leading scorers, but on those 16 and 18 teams, the leading scorers and the stars were the most committed to our core values, and they weren't committed to individual success. And then they that trickled down through the team, and that we've had some other teams where the best players were committed to core values, but not to the level of 16 and 18. And 18, Ryan Archidiakono was this. I mean, 16, Ryan Archidiakono was a senior. Daniel Chefu was a senior. Those guys set the tone. And what was really interesting was the young guys on that team. Jalen Brunson was a freshman. Mikal Bridges was a sophomore. Josh Hart was a sophomore. Those young guys, and then in 18, when they became upperclassmen and they became the stars, they learned from the guys that came before them how to do that. Instead of saying it's my turn to be the star, they said, I watched Ryan Archidiakono and Daniel Chefu. I watched when they were stars, they were unselfish and committed to the team. So now when I'm the star, I want to do the same because I see they benefited from that individually.
So it's part of the culture.
Exactly. And that's, there's a lot of trust there, like we talked earlier. When you get to be the star, you got to trust that, okay, I'm the star. I might be the highest paid in the company. And yes, I'm needed and I'm valued, but so is everybody else. I'm not as good by myself as I am if I'm with everybody else. And I have to show my impact as the leader on everything I do and my commitment to the core values is going to impact everybody greatly.
I think that culture of respect is such an incredible way to view the world. And I know in your book, Attitude, you specifically talked about how each person has a role to play and no one role is more valuable, whether it's the bus driver or the star player or a member of the coaching staff. And I love how you framed instilling that culture of trust and respect once an individual has joined the team. I'm curious, how do you ensure that the players you're selecting and bringing on as new additions to the team will be strong team players? I'm sure you've gone through this process so many times through the decades. And what are your words of wisdom on that process?
It's funny, Julie, what you mentioned. Like, the bus driver is a great example. Like, we get our team bus drivers got 2 NCAA national championship rings. And one of our most enjoyable experiences when our team was able to present him with the ring and let him know how valuable he was to all of us, right? And um, it always happens. A freshman star comes on our team, right? And when he first gets there, he thinks he's a star. We're all lucky to have him there, which we are. But in practice, one of the managers will, come out when there's sweat on the floor and he'll run out and wipe up the sweat at his feet. He'll look down at him like, this is crazy. And we'll all say to him like, hey, did you thank him for wiping up that sweat? Like, and the kid's always taken back at first. He kind of looks like, well, that's his job. I'm the star. He's supposed to wipe up my sweat. But then they learn, that that's valuable. And we respect that guy for that role. And to answer your question, we use our players and us as a staff as we're recruiting, and recruiting in college basketball is very competitive as it is, in the business world. We're out there, recruiting against the Dukes, the Kentuckys, and they can show these guys a lot of bells and whistles, and we don't want a guy that's going to make the decision based on that. Now we have to have the bells and whistles too, but we want him to make his decision based on whether he's going to come to the program based by explaining to him our core values and how we're going to educate him about being a part of a team and how that's going to benefit him. And when he comes and visits, we have him spend time with our players. We show him some of these things I'm explaining to you, a practice, and show him our guys thanking the guy wiping up the sweat and showing him how we treat people and having him experience that. And he might go to another school and they might treat him like a king while he's there, right? And if we want him to make the decision based on seeing the reality of what we are, but we also want him to spend time with our players away from us. And then we meet with our players and we ask our players, is he going to be able to fit into our culture? Because rarely do we get somebody, rarely. Now, sometimes we're fortunate and we do, that gets all of these concepts and these core values. Just like if you hire someone that they're not going to get exactly what Hartford Funds is all about coming in. They're going to, but you have to ask your people and then you have to judge, do they have a good heart and are they open? Are they going to be open to learning and changing? We have another term that we use and we tell them this when we're recruiting. You become us. We don't become you. So you don't come into the program and then we change the program based on your abilities. You come into the program and you learn our culture. And then once you learn it, your abilities become accentuated within our culture.
So, Coach, as I hear you talk about the secrets of putting together these great teams, talk a little bit about your experience in Tokyo coaching the Olympic team. Now, there we have some of the best individual players in the world coming together to play as a team, and you didn't have that much time, right, to kind of meld them together. Were there any secrets or anything that you, as part of that coaching staff, kind of did to bring those guys together to create that gold medal winning team?
You know what, John? It's an incredible. I could probably spend an entire podcast talking about this. Winning the gold medal this summer, I was assistant coach. Obviously, Greg Popovich was the head coach. Steve Kerr from the Golden State Warriors was the other assistant coach, and Lloyd Pierce, who was with the head coach Atlanta Hawks and now is with the Pacers. But we were the staff. But so I was only an assistant, but still being an assistant, it was the greatest coaching experience I've ever had in my life. Um, the most fulfilling I've ever had because the challenges were incredible. Tokyo was under emergency conditions with COVID. So we were quarantined for 37 days. We started in Las Vegas, our training camp. We couldn't be with our families couldn't come. And I originally agreed to coach the Olympics and the World Cup because I thought my family could come to the Olympics. I thought it would be nice, you know. But when Tokyo announced that they're not going to have any fans and no one from out of the country can come to the games, the challenges just started to begin. So these players, as you mentioned, the highest paid players in the world, the greatest players in the world, they're locked. We were locked in a hotel for 37 days. First in Las Vegas for training camp, and then when we went to Tokyo, we couldn't even go outside. We weren't even allowed outside. So that was a challenge. Also, the NBA season, because of the previous year with COVID, was prolonged and went into July when the Olympics started. So we had 3 players from our team, Chris Middleton from Milwaukee Bucks, Jrue Holiday from the Milwaukee Bucks, and Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns. They played in the NBA Finals in July while we were in Las Vegas training. After the NBA Finals, the 3 of them, now they had played against each other in the finals, got on a plane and flew 14 hours to Tokyo and came in at 2 o'clock in the morning on the day of our first game. So the challenges were incredible. But to answer your question about what were the secrets, what was amazing was we had grown men, professionals, guys that make $40 million a year, locked in a hotel for 37 days just doing basketball. And we went through some adversity because in our leading scorer from the Washington Wizards tested positive um, for COVID. He got sent home. Then we had other guys that were Kevin Love got hurt. He had to go home. We had guys like Chris Paul, who was going to play for the team. He got hurt in the playoffs, so he couldn't play. So we had all this adversity, and we're locked together in a hotel. And the closeness and the sacrificing that everyone did because we were forced to be together was incredible, and it pulled us through it. And I normally, if you're at the Olympics, and we had been in the World Cup a couple years before, when you come out of the hotel, there's thousands of people waiting for these NBA guys, autographs, and the guys are going out at night, and they're all, they're enjoying the thrills of being an NBA player in a foreign country, but no one could do that. All we could do was practice together, watch film together, eat meals together, hang out together. We became so close that literally, and when we lost some games early, the USA team never loses, but people didn't know what we were going through. We were getting criticized, and we were in this hotel looking at all the social media and ESPN, everybody criticizing Popovich, criticizing Kevin Durant, criticizing Draymond Green. It just brought us closer and closer to the point where when we won the gold medal, there was literally grown men crying. We were so we had been through so much together, and we were so close, and all of us, said, like, this is one of the greatest accomplishments we've been a part of. And our coaching staff to this day now, Jeff Van Gundy, Ime Udoka is the coach of the Celtics, and those guys were there with us, supporting us, part of our staff. You didn't see them on the bench, but all of us keep a text thread to this day. And every time we text each other, we just first word we vowed we were going to say to each other is always gold. So it was one of the great experiences of a coach's lifetime.
You mentioned Coach Greg Popovich a moment ago, and obviously, arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time. What lessons or words of wisdom did you pick up from him during your very intense time together in Tokyo?
A lot. I hope I'm a much better coach. This was about a 5-year commitment, Julie. So Coach Popovich and I started about 5 years ago preparing the 2016 team with Coach Krzyzewski. We coached the select team, which was the young NBA guys that practiced against the 16 Olympic team to get them ready for the Olympics. And then we watched Coach K and how he prepared. And then we coached the World Cup, which was in China in 2019, and prepared for that. And then obviously the Olympics were supposed to be 20. So we prepared for 20 and then they got canceled. So then we had to do it all over again at 21. So it was 5 years with them, which was invaluable. And personally, again, a great experience. We developed an incredible relationship and friendship. But to watch him as a leader, number one, so the guy's going to be great, right? He's one of the greatest of all time. So you're going in with high expectations. It's difficult for him it would have been difficult for him to impress me because I was already thinking he's the best. But from the first day that we met before the 19 Gold Cup, um, his preparation and attention to detail was by far the best I've ever seen I study business people like John, and I watch them do their work. But we had a staff meeting in San Antonio in June before the World Cup, and he had every possible detail covered and prepared for us, our staff, before we came in there. Even we were playing in China that year. Even all terms that we should know in Chinese that we would need in basketball and in going to restaurants. and in hotels. He had in every city we were going to listed the best restaurants in each city, and then the detail of basketball wise. And for all of us who were, everybody's an NBA coach, and then myself, I was the only college coach, but he had every change in FIBA rules as compared to NBA, as compared to college, every game situation that would come up that would be different for us based on the rules. He had the rosters of all the teams on every team we were playing set up, scouting set up for each one. I, now, he went to the Air Force Academy. So, and I had been with Coach K too, who went to West Point, and I was always amazed at his level of preparation. And they're both of them are very close in that way. But um, after that, as I just explained to you our story about what had happened to us, I can't share everything, but it was daily there was a crisis. You know, we all know this in business, right? Um, we use a term here. You know, every day you come into the office, expect problems. Know that that's going to be your that's going to be your day. Is attacking these problems and these challenges, right? That's what we do as leaders. But every day there was a crisis, you know, where, you know, somebody tested positive for COVID. Somebody said they weren't going to be able to make the team. Somebody's agent wasn't happy with how they're being used on the team. Um, the- you know, they were talking about maybe canceling the Olympics. You know, the plane wasn't going to get there in time to get us, you know, to Tokyo when we needed to be. New levels of testing, contact tracing. Guys were out, so you don't have enough guys to practice today. You know, this guy gets hurt every day. His ability to attack a problem, stay positive, keep everybody united, and see that the leader is not daunted. He gave it. Now we were, as I said to you, quarantined. So just amongst us, sometime his guys, we'd have a glass of wine late at night, and you could see it was killing him, but he never let anybody else see it during the day. His ability to lead under pressure was amazing.
I'm fascinated by the level of preparation and organization. And I'm just curious, based upon that specific best practice, is there any part of his process that you've implemented or enhanced what you are already doing as you look ahead to this season after spending so much time with him and soaking up some of that wisdom?
Yeah, definitely, Julie. I'm a hands-on guy. I have a we have a great staff here. We really do, and I trust them. Um, but I think I learned from him more um, to delegate better. Um, man, he even with our coaching staff, when we did scouting reports for our opponent, the level of responsibility that he gave us, I want to do that more with our staff. Um, I don't, you know, I don't feel like I give our staff as much responsibility as he gave us. Now, he's working with head coaches, you know, that are his assistants, but I could he had his staff was with us too. He does the same with his staff. And I know as we all know in leadership, he he did an amazing job, and this is what I'm trying to take with my staff of giving us our say. Like he wouldn't make a decision without all of us giving our point, where we really felt like he he trusted our opinions, but he had a way of making it very clear that he was making the decision, but many times it was your suggestion as an assistant, uh, or in a scouting report, your plan, he was putting it into effect, but he did it in a way where you felt like it was your idea, but it was really clear he was in charge and really clear that he was the leader. It was, and I'm trying to do that here with my team better. and I don't know if it's his charisma or he's a big guy, he's a strong guy, he's a tough guy, but I've never seen anyone, delegate as much, give his staff as much say, but still clearly remain in charge.
Coach, a couple of minutes ago, you were talking about pressure, and I want to change gears a little bit. I mean, sometimes pressure is from forces we never saw coming, but other times, pressure is something that we see coming. And where I want to go to is the madness of March Madness, which you have to contend with every spring, right? So, how does the pressure of something like March Madness impact a team, even a team that's been cruising along, let's say through the season, but now you talked about the crucible in Tokyo, but in a similar way, I'm guessing you experience that every March with your teams that are now in the focus of March Madness. What are some of the things that you share with your teams as you begin that process of the March Madness tournament? And what takeaways do you really want to impart to them so that they play the kind of game that you've envisioned them playing?
Yeah, that's a great question, John, and I can't answer that without referring to the Olympics because, and I'll get to the March Madness part, but I always thought, as you said, Nick, March Madness is crazy, and you can, and we've done this. You could have a year where you're the number one seed, you had the greatest team of any team all year long in the country, which should mean the most. Over 32 games, you ended the season number one, but you lose in the second round of the NCAA tournament, and perceptually, your entire season was a failure. That is a lot of pressure, and but not as much pressure, and I didn't know it until I went through it, is when you're the head coach of USA basketball, there's no there's no excuses. It's just you either win the gold or you're a total failure, and if you win the gold, there's no applause or recognition. It's just, all right, that's what you're supposed to do. And 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 if you're into it for recognition, then you shouldn't be you shouldn't be into it. Um, if you're doing what you do for outside recognition and praise, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And it's kind of the same thing we try to impart upon our players when it comes to the NCAA tournament that we use a term, we practice every day to create habits that are going to make us successful in the most difficult situations. So every day, everything we're doing, it's not just to win the game or to win that drill in practice. It's create habits that when we're in the NCAA tournament and all the pressure's on us, and when you're a high seed, when you're a number one seed or a two seed, um, and you're playing in the NCAA tournament, and it happened to us in Philadelphia one year. We were a one seed. We were playing the 16 seed. It was Monmouth, and they were making a comeback on us. It was getting close in the second half, and we're in Philadelphia, and the whole place turned on us because in the NCAA tournament, everybody loves the underdog. So we're literally playing in Philadelphia, and everyone's rooting for Monmouth, and you're in that pressure where everybody wants to see this 16-1 upset. uh, it's pressure. And if you're only focused on the result, or if you're only focused on what's going on outside of your team or your culture, you're doomed to failure. It, the closer we get to the big games, the more we talk to our guys about what we can control, and we can control our attitude and we can control our effort. And we never fear failure. Failure, we never fear failure as defined by the fans or as defined by the outside world, which is losing. In 2015, we were a number one seed and we lost to a number eight seed in the second round. And we were crucified for, being losers. And we explained to our guys that year, and we still do it every year in this program, that team every day was committed to our core values. And in that game, until the last second, we played true to our core values. So it wasn't failure. To the outside world, it was, but to us, it was not failure, and it will never be. That team within our program is looked at as one of the great teams because we wanted the young guys to learn a lesson that that team had the most wins at that time in the history of Villanova basketball in a season. So we said to them, what you did was you had great habits every day and you brought it every day over a 3-month season for 34 games. I think we were 32-2. Bringing a great effort every day is what you can control, and bringing a great attitude every day is what you can control. That's what you did. So one game, one day there was some circumstances maybe that we couldn't handle, or maybe some circumstances that were out of our control that we lost the game. So everyone's going to call us a failure, but we evaluate ourselves from within. That's not a failure. So we've used that within our program to teach our guys going into March Madness. Hey, you're a 1 seed, you're playing a 16 seed. You're a 1 seed, you're playing an 8 seed. Now you're a 1 seed, you're playing a 4 seed. There's no fear of failure. The only thing we fear is not living up to our core values and not living up to playing for each other and giving our best effort and having our best attitude. That's what we control.
Well, I think, Coach, that's why you're recognized for not just being a great coach, but also a great leader, because I think that's what great leaders would do is stay focused on the goal and stay committed to the values that we've established. And I guess, with that in mind, I'll ask kind of almost a roundup question, which is if there's one thing you could tell people who are listening today about ways to make their teams more effective, their whatever that team may be, might be better leadership role in your family, might be in the workplace, whatever it is. What would you distill that down to?
Well, great point, John, because all those are teams, right? And your family and your circle of friends, your company that you work for, your group within your company, your division, whatever, they're all separate teams, right? And as leaders, what we've tried to do over the years is talk to our guys that we are a family, we're a team, and what we're trying to do is define how we're going to live, not just how we're going to work or how we're going to play in a game, but it's going to be how we treat each other after the game, how we treat the people we work with during the week, how we handle success and how we handle failure. Our culture and our job as leaders is to create a way we're going to live. So even if you work for Hartford Funds, even when you're not at work, you're a part of that team. So what you do in the community represents Hartford Funds, right? And it's bigger than just what you're doing when you're working for us. It's what kind of person are you and how are you going to treat people and how are you going to handle success and how are you going to handle failure? That's the core values. It's as a leader, it's our job to build those core values. We have to be the keepers of the flame. We have to lead by walking the walk and not just talking the talk, but not define what we're going to celebrate. Like the example that you led me into, which was great, about that team in 15 that lost in the second round, but won the most games in the history of Villanova basketball. We didn't celebrate or we didn't kind of feel bad about the fact that we lost in the second round. We were proud of the way we lived all year long, the way we handled everything. That next year, we won the national championship. And when we won the national championship, it was about how we handled that too. We have a saying that we play for those who came before us. We didn't celebrate those guys that they were any better than the guys in 15 or the guys in 1965 that built this program. Everybody was a part of that. The last one I'll leave you with is the stone cutter. That if you look at a stone cutter tapping at his rock, he'll tap it at his rock maybe 1,000 times before that rock breaks. But it wasn't that 1,000th blow. It was all the blows that came before that. And when we won the championship in 16, we said to the guys, hey, it's not this isn't about you. This isn't just you. This is all the guys that have came before you that have built this. So how you handle failure, how you handle success, that's really what we define as leaders. And if we're going to keep those core values strong and that culture strong, we got to make sure that we are always monitoring how we live, not what we celebrate.
Well, Coach, we come to about the end of our time together, but Julie would not forgive me if I didn't ask you, can we expect another Wildcats championship this year?
Hey, you know the answer. I can't promise a championship, but I promise you we'll be committed to our core values. That's and each new year, even though you have some of the same guys back, they're different people. They have different expectations. So you got to get them recommitted to the core values. And you got new guys coming in. You got to get them to learn the core values and then commit to them. So by the end, we want to be playing the best basketball we can, and we want to be the best Villanova team we can, which means be as committed to our core values as we can. If that's good enough to win a national championship, fine. If it's not, we'll accept our destiny based on the fact that we're committed to our core values. So I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but that is really how we do it. It really is.
Well, good luck this season, Coach. I wish you all the best.
Thanks,
Yes,
guys.
thank
Great
you
talking
so
to you.
much for your time and the words of wisdom and all of the inspiration. And for those of you listening, if you want to learn more about how to optimize your own advisor team, and in Coach Wright's words, learn how to live all year long, click on the link in the show notes, or please visit hartfordfunds.com/teams. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Hartford Funds Human Centric Investing Podcast. If you'd like to tune in for more episodes, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube.
And if you'd like to be a guest and share your best ideas for transforming client relationships, email us at guestbooking@hartfordfunds.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Talk to you soon.